thought lastly that we could watch this DepressedNousagi video, The Absolute State of Vtubing, why Vtubing is becoming more negative. I think it's an interesting discussion. Like actually, I think it can spark an interesting discussion. Let's watch.
Vtubing is ruined. What happened to VTubers? Why is VTubing so negative now? It's a sincere question that you might have asked, especially if you came into the industry back in its early establishment, and it's a question laced with negativity, usually. If you've been around since like 2020, 2019, you might have a fond memory of what it represented. It was a time when it was magical, it was fresh, everything was glittering with inspiration.
That was such a good stream.
And creativity, you felt emotions you've never felt before, a space to enjoy and escape from the real world that was breathing down your neck. But now? Well, it just seems like many places are on fire, and it's hard to ignore the screaming in the background, and it's usually the same cycle. First comes venting, then callouts, then vague posting, then politics, high school level drama, every single week. It's gotten to a point that I'm getting tired of it. Me, a fucking slop-eating, slop-making retard. We have VTubers themselves reminiscing about the good times, pondering what happened. Somewhere in 2020 and 2026,
I mean, there was always some negativity around VTubers. If you go on like 2chan, and we use, I used to research like really old VTubers, and to do that, we had to look up like archives and forum boards on like the Japanese side from all the way back then, and that place was fucking chaotic. It was really toxic, but I think, this is just a hypothesis, is that it was segregated to these places. It didn't leak out in people's chat. It didn't leak out on Twitter that much, perhaps.
A poison was dropped in the well, something that cascaded the industry into this messy dumpster fire that...
It was also much more frowned upon to be negative around VTubers.
Despite its many ups and downs, many people still call home. So, what happened? But before we continue, may I interest you in other videos not meant for the peasants to see? In that case, I'd recommend you join my channel memberships or my Patreon. We have monthly exclusive banners in there as well as uncensored versions of certain content, all ad-free. And besides, you help me keep creating bangers like these in the long term with your support. So if you have some spare change for a cup of coffee every month or something, consider giving it to me instead. Anyway, that's all. Thank you, and let's go back to the video. Let's make things clear first. Since 2020, where a lot of traditional fans became fans, the scene has always been plagued with a lot of negativity and drama and tribalistic
I
behavior.
loved the ad edit. It was great. Yeah, true. There was also a lot of anti-drama rules. I remember even when I started covering drama, there was a lot of pushback. I got called, all kinds of names, Nazi, doxer, all of that. I still get called those names, but I think people now are realizing that like, oh, actually these early like drama commentary channels were probably the most reasonable ones compared to what we have now.
Especially from Hololive fans and Nijisanji fans. During those days, stuff happened.
Yeah,
like
you still get randomly yelled at. True. It used to either affect me a lot more back then, but it used to be like, it would take a lot of more amplitude too, in terms of numbers, I think. But I could be wrong about it, and it could just be my perception, because now I just don't pay attention to it. So it could be that too. Not sure.
Zoramel harassed in the workspace. Mano Aloe's graduation exploding in
that was
Hololive's
toxic.
face. Capcom intentionally targeting Hololive for not getting proper permissions for their games. Hololive fans being skeptical of English, the Keryo Coco Taiwan incident, Hololive China being dissolved and the political shenanigans that came from that, Mori Calliope's Lean incident, Mori Calliope's Connor incident, Mori Calliope being baited by the trolls incident, Mori Calliope's Gura incident.
She used to get so much hate too.
There was a lot of Mori Calliope drama. Heck, even outside Hololive, we had the voice replacement incident of Kizuna Ai, the King Yuzaka Meru versus Yuzuki Rua civil war, Project Melody's Vtuber model getting copyright struck by the modeler. I could name a lot more, but most
I think one of the most toxic forum boards was Shindo Raito's, like, around his graduation. Like he had debuted, and he was already like, they had already found all of his PLs, everything on these forums. Same with Mano Aloe. Pretty much all of the VTubers would get basically would have their PLs unnerved as they debut it, like at a incredible speed.
of the drama I'm gonna wager you haven't really heard of, especially the smaller ones. Or you might even think that it wasn't that big of a deal. But even despite all this negativity, there was a massive upside. People chose not to focus on the drama too much and the negativity, including myself. Because Vtubing was so magical, it incited a lot of very deep and positive emotions. It inspired so much creativity and will that the fact that there were a lot of drama was almost brushed under the rug. In this once small bubble, the positivity overpowered the negativity, even while that negativity was happening during its peak. But as the magic of Vtubing slowly disappeared, as the freshness faded and the industry expanded, that positive energy also went away. The honeymoon period being over left fans roiling in the negativity that remains. But a few people might not see it that way, especially the newcomers. I hear a lot of opinions about why VTubing became the way that it is, whether or not they prefer it. VTubers focused so much on the streamer aspect rather than the character part. I interpreted this as a lot of newcomers focusing too much on the business rather than the fun, becoming overall a well-oiled machine rather than an entertainer. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have tweets like this from JoeCat saying that VTubing is becoming better because everyone is slowly shedding the idol culture parts of the medium. So
Dude, that tweet got so much backlash. That was such an incredible shit show. Also a bad take, TBH, to be real. I mean, I think when people say idol culture, they're probably thinking about the negative parts of idol culture, but most of us like the idol part of VTubing, because that's the part that takes the most skills, I'd say. Like singing, dancing, performing, playing a character, those are acting skills. This is not skills that any streamer could do, and this is what made VTubers have such a high production value.
So which is it? Is VTubing becoming worse or getting better? Obviously, your answer will ultimately depend on factors like when you became interested in VTubing and entered the industry, and who your favorite creators are, and if you are a creator yourself, what kind of creator you wanna be. And as you can surmise from the title, I am leaning towards the former, especially because I am a traditional VTuber fan, who mostly watches VTubers that associate more with the JP adjacent culture rather than the English Twitch streamer culture. And from my thinking, I have created a model that encapsulates why VTubing has become the way that it is.
Oh, he made
I call
this.
it the 4Ds. Difficulty, disillusionment, division, and drama. I think this is the loop that made VTubing the way that it is, and wherever you might have started falling into the piece here, I've noticed that it always happens in this.
Oh, why is here? True though, I read that he's only talking towards the negative aspects. I think that's how most people read it, but also it's because everybody is insensitive only to talk about the negative aspects on things because of algorithms. So when people don't know a lot about idol culture, that's all they know, unfortunately.
Order. So let me break it down. As VTubing expanded, there became more viewers, more money to harvest, but also more competition. There became less things to try and innovate on. Back then, when there were few VTubers, innovation and even unique character design elements and gimmicks were easier to do because the space was emptier. There were still lots of strats and undiscovered niches, but now, a lot of niches has been filled. Standing out has become a lot more difficult. This bred a bit of desperation.
Yeah, that is true too. The negative parts of idol culture is where most of the original drama came from. Like just earlier we talked about like the deep space stuff, and you know, the fans get very, very protective, very tribalist. That's also all part of like idol culture, but I feel like these are more issues on the fan side. But again, Mfried is doing a good point here. Like, the negative parts of idol culture are where the original drama came from, but it's the positive parts of idol cultures are also what made it so good. And unfortunately, we haven't found, like, you can't separate the two. They come hand in hand. So because of idol culture, we've had wonderful innovations, we've had wonderful content, high production value, like artists and performers come out of this idol culture, but we also have to deal, just like with everything else, the negative parts of it, the negative sides.
A sense of defensive or insecurity.
Is that not just streamer culture? I think that fandoms are way more intense and insane in K-pop, gachas, like idol culture stuff. This includes singing idols, idol games, anime. These topics, there's probably more, but I find that these fandoms are very, very dedicated, but they can also turn very, very toxic.
VTubers' own content, design, and even fans. We saw a small glimpse of this behavior from multiple big VTubers when the Cinder incident happened. When Vtubing became big, it started to get more difficult to create content that could retain your viewers while also attracting more. This might not be the case for a lot of the bigger already established creators, but it is the case for most of the creators that wanted to climb the ladder, and believe me, there was a lot. Without the support of something like Hololive, how the hell were you supposed to grow your own brand? This was when a lot of new agencies popped up, led by people with mysterious background and probably almost zero business experience.
God, Akio
And
Air.
they promised you a little bit of what Hololive does, but without the glam and pre-established numbers. Some VTubers join these agencies, but normally, they are short-lived because a lot of them collapse in the most miserable yet spectacular way. It's a miracle if they just died peacefully and, you know...
Yeah, that's why Mint is #1 when it comes to VTuber. She understands idol culture and brought it up with her every step. She largely stays out of... She is the idol VTuber. Like, she represents everything that an idol should be. Gentle, kind, like an incredible performer, artistic, really into her craft, just positive vibes on streams. That's it. She's it.
Without drama. Whether these incidents happened because the CEO was a sex pest, or the genmates were schizophrenic that it ruins the company from the inside, or, you know, maybe just the simple but innocent CEO is not that good at business. Lots of things could go wrong behind the scenes, and it could genuinely affect how some of these VTubers see the industry. But let's say you're just an indie that didn't need an agency but needed a bit of help. Perhaps the aid of a third-party company or solo managers was the way to go.
No, not
but then
Studio
turns
Cell.
out you end up being scammed or being sex pests.
Studio Cell was like an animation studio that scammed several VTubers, including Bao, Amelie. He owed like thousands of dollars. But Amelie also had, and then there was the issue with Copium Merch, who also scammed them. Shoto, Amelie, and somebody else. Maybe that was Bao again, actually.
Seems to be a common occurrence here for some reason. But when agencies and companies weren't enough, some people started to do interesting things. Without the support of an agency, the strat for a lot of VTubers was to be active on Twitter and engage with fans and nerd stuff before debuting themselves. At first, this was a success, with one of the more notable examples being Artemis of the Blue. But then some of these people started bitching and whining about the lack of success, instead of, you know, actually streaming and putting effort and researching what they want to do. These permanent debut TBA creators would be called V-tweeters. And I mention them because a lot of the negativity and drama that happens in the industry is on Twitter and is caused by V-tweeters and tweets in general, regardless if they were V-tweeters or not. But some of them actually started grinding, and some would even implement a few less than ethical tactics. At first, it was relatively subtle, like copying design elements, sometimes intentionally to leech off of one of the popular ones, sometimes unintentionally. Not to leech, but because they found it to be a cool design gimmick or because they looked up to the VTuber, or sometimes two different minds just come up with the same design or gimmick at the same time. But then it started to escalate.
Yeah, but there are some people who do it for leech. For example, a VTuber example, although he's not a traditional VTuber, would be the sheriff, the faithful sheriff. He like copied his design off the burnt peanut in an attempt to leech off of his fame. And he really wanted the burnt peanut to like acknowledge him.
People started aggressively collabing with other VTubers, not to foster friendships but to borrow their platform or organize their own network, having their fingers on a bit of everyone's pie. They would pretend to be fans or supportive, slowly worming their way to that creator's circle, pestering them, not really even considering them as friends but more so jumping pads just so they can leech off of them a little bit. An entire discussion even appeared on Twitter about this, on whether or not collabing should purely be a business decision or something you should be able to do with just your friends. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it does speak to the intentions of many VTubers and how they appear on stream. Because to a fan, how do we tell who are real friends versus who are just collabing to social climb and rub shoulders with bigger content creators? It got to a point that even big creators started complaining about how used they feel when they became victims of this. But VTuber wannabes weren't the only parasites, there were also Twitch e-girls. Even e-girls and Twitch streamers were using the VTuber tag on Twitch at one point to capitalize off of the rising trend, which gave way for a lot of these e-girls to try their hand on the medium, without really even understanding, appreciating, or participating in the culture. But if that wasn't enough, they'd repost memes, copy-paste and recycle engagement bait strats. And look, I respect it. I like reading through some of these trends and engagement baits myself, but some of them can get a little too weird for comfort. It could be vague posting about something, it could be a rage bait, it could be sympathy bait, or even virtue signaling. Sometimes they'd even join trends that are usually a guaranteed attention magnet like art raffles or more notoriously, VTuber versus IRL, who started off in a
not this shit again, bro.
Enough and still in line with the medium, but then they started to integrate actual flesh posting. And the moment this happened, it became a bit of a slippery slope. Because then a lot of indie VTubers started to not just stop on the VTuber versus IRL trend, but started to integrate their bodies and faces as part of their regular content. And I'm not talking about the occasional hand cam or walking streams, I'm talking about IRL. I say this mostly as observation than judgment.
Oh, thank God he censored the flesh tubers. We don't want to see flesh, we want to see pixels! Pixels only! I actually received a video revision from one of my editor late last night, so I decided to do that. And then it was a video on Tokino Sora, but we're talking about stuff that doesn't have B-roll, so he's finding stock footage or something to put on the screen while I'm talking about it. And he was finding all of these like B-rolls of like, you know, real people. And at one point I was just like, too much flesh tuber on stream. Can we have like can you just put like anime B-roll for this part? Like I'm getting flesh jump scare after flesh jump scare. I don't want to see this in my video on Tokino Sora, bro.
But there's a lot of VTubers whose regular content, whether that be on their streams or on their tweets, aren't really even of their characters anymore, but rather their bodies, and it eventually falls into a pipeline of doing OnlyFans or fansly content.
Listen, the one VTuber that I love her. Last night I opened YouTube, my For You page, and who was on there? Keisan. Keisan was live. She looks so beautiful. She spoke Japanese the entire time. I understood nothing she said, and I watched her for like an entire hour. She's so pretty. She actually looks like an anime character.
That don't even use their VTuber models porn like what many authentic lewd VTubers do. And look, I know there's a lot of weird hate against fansly using VTubers now, and if the VTuber uses their actual VTuber models or just art of themselves, I think that's fair game. The occasional flesh posting to me is okay, especially cosplay related ones, even if it's not safe for work, especially if you've
especially the Sarurai cosplay ones. I don't mind those at all. I'm goonstigating those.
Been upfront about your content, and especially if that was the natural pipeline for your career, like if you were a porn VA, for example, or a VR chat streamer. But I think if your regular content and your NSFW is just your IRL, especially with your face attached, and you market yourself as a VTuber, I would be inclined to think that in large part you're not really a VTuber. Of course, there are exceptions, especially when you're categorized as a live streamer who happens to have a VTuber model like Onigiri and Keisan, but it's hard not to think that way. And The thing is, this trend is
Wait.
not
I didn't know Onigiri did collabs with K-San and Demon Dice. What?
especially when you're
I'm actually
categorized
so
as a live
jealous.
streamer who happens to have a VTuber model like Onigiri and K-san, but it's hard not to think that way. And the thing is, this trend
That's
is
so
not
cool.
exclusive to Western VTubing, as much as a lot of
She is so tall, by the way, Onigiri. Like, she's so pretty. Rima, we can see your mouse cursor hovering over certain parts. The one with Demon Dice was recent too?
the widening traditional fans like to believe. Many indie JP VTubers actually exploit this as well. If you use the godforsaken site known as Twitter, you might have seen a lot of these. A lot of VTubers bouncing their tits and showing their full naked bodies, and it gets them lots of views. Goonbait is and always will be a tried and true method for catching the attention in the internet. But perhaps on a VTuber's last attempt to find viewers, some take on one of the bigger gambles, breaking what used to be a big taboo in VTubing: political commentary. You see, traditionally, Vtubing was supposed to be non-political. Like, there was nothing about anime e-girls that was supposed to reflect real-world current happenings. It was supposed to be a place for escapism.
Yeah.
You don't fucking preach about BLM and
Yeah, like when I open a VTuber stream, I want to get fucking isekai'd, bro. I want to get isekai'd into their meme world that they're building for me.
fuck ICE whenever you're live or you're tweeting, but you also don't preach about the fucking loss of Christian values or pearl clutch about sex workers. But as it is when niche nerdy things become mainstream, political people come in from all walks and backgrounds. It's always been a thing on Twitter, but they were largely ignored up until the big 2023, when Pikami and Silvervale were harassed by Twitter slacktivists because they dared to play the wizard game.
Yeah.
But then other communities started to form, and then other communities that were formed to counter them. It subtly started with people like Kershaw. Pipa also got roped into it. Bro doesn't want any of this bullshit in the industry and was never really part of the entire culture war. However, the identity politics crowd deemed her to be right-leaning because she hates that this poison was infesting the industry, and because Face Connect was, you know...
Damn, guys, I gotta build a world for Rima now. Yes.
loved by 4chan. On the other side of the aisle, there were also multiple people making their declarations, like Uki Violetta of Nijisanji EN's blatant hate for white people,
Oh,
and
God.
Funana's Educate Yourself incident, claiming that the Japanese term trap was transphobic. This happened in 2022, but whatever. A lot of these politically charged incidents slowly but surely gave rise to a new breed of political figures. Now, we have seemingly right-leaning figures like Powder and Leaflet, while on the other we have Nyara and, Anna Valens? Sorry, I could not think of any left-leaning politically charged VTubers that had like a bigger platform. There's also more on Twitter, by the way.
isn't.
We now have lots of political
Yeah, Reason the Clop. We don't need the politics slop in here. We don't. I think I agree with WestJets after all. There's no use arguing with these people. They're too deep in the trenches.
commentators in Vtubing who mostly just tweets about it and occasionally does a little bit of streaming or who doesn't stream at all. I'd explain more of the history about how this happened, but that's worth an entire video. Y'all are gonna have to settle on a super
right, Safira the Norma. He could have named her, yeah. I don't think the others do. I don't know if Anna Valens does content. I don't think so.
oversimplified version. All of this combined had Vtubing develop its own battleground of political ideologies. Now more than ever, talking about politics is a risky yet effective way to grow your numbers, regardless of right or left. If you are a traditional Vtuber fan, it's like a landfill was forming right outside your gated village. If you go outside the gate, you can definitely...
It's not really risky in that sense. It's like you pick a side and you stick to it and you get backlash from the other side. But the backlash from the other side doesn't matter. Actually, when you get backlash from your opposing faction, it plays into your hand. You are happy. You're actually super happy. If somebody from an opposite faction is talking shit about you, that's free content. And I think even like politicians operate that way. This is just like a basic it's like one of the key principles of communications and PR when it comes to especially internet PR.
fucking smell it. It's gotten to a point that even it has attracted the attention of traditional fans who normally wouldn't participate in these kind of discussions. But in lieu of the happening being outside, some feel compelled to say their piece. especially Nijisanji fans.
Yeah, it gives you clout with your tribe. That's a good way of putting it. It's only risky if you're left-leaning, not risky from right side as much, but you get deplatformed from conventions and sponsors. That is true. That is true.
Because some members there are more politically driven than others. Though perhaps it was always inevitable that politics was going to invade Vtubing. So hey, you know, if you need a quick number or follower boost, say one of the two things. The N-word hard R and preach about Christianity or something, or that white people need to be cold and fuck the patriarchy, or something. But Nusagi,
Wait, you forgot about the Palestine stuff. Palestine buzzwords.
You ask, what if I'm not North American and these politics don't apply to me? Tough luck. Pretend to be a Westoid, I guess. Or maybe be racist towards Koreans and the Chinese instead. That usually works sometimes. All these strategies, from copying design elements, copying...
There's also... No, I think there's also a thing he's missing, and maybe he'll talk about it later. Like, for example, Koreans getting random, like, pachas thrown at them. I think it's to stand out from a crowd of so many voices. People go for shock value. It's kind of like the PETA thing, but how do you keep escalating the shock value? You know? How do you keep manufacturing drama to get that boost so it goes more and more extreme, and more you go for, you know, the easy shock value words. So that's why we have the meme like, just say the line VTuber now. It's a risky tactic though, because as quickly and firmly you gain devotees, you gain an equal number of enemies in an instance. It tends to backfire. The amount of enemies don't really matter unless some of them are like generally mentally ill and they'll try to harass you and take it IRL, which does happen. But even if you don't do that, you get those. So you get a lot of devotees. Fighting your enemies, you know, gives you more popularity, it gives you more clout, it gives you more sympathy, and it only backfires if you say something that goes against what your side promotes. That's when it becomes dangerous. Suddenly, you flipped on them, and that happens with all sides. It's not just one side or another does that. Is as soon as you betrayed them, as soon as you stop agreeing with them, then they dip. And this is where the fickleness actually lies.
And participating in rampant engagement, sympathy, and rage bait, the leeching, the trend joining, the drama farming, we'll get into that later, and the political grifting all scream one point. Everyone wants attention. That everyone, and I mean everyone, is competing hard for the limited attention and eyes Vtubing has. Vtubing ultimately has a cap on the numbers of viewers. The biggest Vtuber that we have that is yet to be surpassed was Gargura at 4 million subscribers.
Yeah.
That is like less than 10 times smaller than the regular community. And it's one that hasn't really moved significantly since 2020. So everyone is a bit desperate. Everyone is struggling to keep their career sustainable and is often willing to do anything to reach the top or maintain their status quo, even if it means betraying, even if it means LARPing, even if it means sacrificing your mental health. And because everyone is having a difficult time, it leads to the next D in our pipeline, disillusionment. For the VTuber side, after the usual agency experience of being abused or sex-pested or even bullied by your own genmates, it might be a little hard to trust people again. But what is even harder is if the people you used to work with, like your genmates, started to actually be successful and climb the ladder. You know some of these people. They are not good people. How the fuck are they being rewarded? Another case, what if the acquaintance or friend that you've trusted so much that you've exposed your heart to ends up betraying you after 1 or 2 disagreements? Hell, another would be if a third-party company that you hired to deal with your shit ended up scamming you. Maybe the fans you've lovingly cultivated decides to abandon you after you're no longer the shiniest girl in the block. Or worse, if you do GFE, turn into an auntie after they just try to dox you and discover that you had a partner, or if you did something that they did not like. What does any of this mean for a girl? Disillusionment. The magic is gone. You see the industry for what it truly is behind the scenes. Different cabals scheming, conniving, and backstabbing their way to the top. A bunch of immature, high school-minded, and emotionally, intellectually stunted people who would dump an expose on your ass for a mistake that could have been talked out in private. A bunch of predatory...
There are some VTuber groups that get together and people are like, yep, I give it a month before Google drops are being dropped on each party. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm seeing this sentiment on Twitter a lot, but it's Twitter, so obviously, where there's a lot of people that view Vtubing, and some of these people are not even content creators, like as like they're waging a constant war. And I'm like, wow, it must be exhausting to feel that way. And I even had this comment on one of my videos that was they were not happy with me because they said I am too, I can't remember the exact words, but it's something like you have too much good faith in the world, or yeah, you're like, you have gullible good faith. But they were roasting me. It was like harsher than that, but essentially they cited that as one of the stuff that I should get attacked for. And I was like, but it's literally like, it's, I think some people see everything as a zero sum, where if they are gaining something, somebody else is losing, and if they're losing something, somebody else is gaining. It doesn't have to be that way. I believe that we can live in a world where, you know, compromises are done and there's some balance, and it's not because I'm doing good that somebody else got to do horribly. And then it's also like, it's like an abundance mindset versus, oh my god, I'm always lacking, I'm always fighting for my life, I'm always fighting for my security, I'm always fighting people online, and every little threat against me, every criticism against me is about to topple everything that I have, you know? And I mean, there's like a degree of self-preservation, of course, that you need to have if you're going to like have a career, but isn't it tiring to live that way? It sounds fucking horrible. Like, I don't get it. Oh yeah, rising tide mentality versus stepping stone mentality. I like that. Yes, I would want my competition to do well. That is so true. Which is why me and Parrot would like compete against each other and give each other like milestones to fight against. They made us work harder. That is true. That's such a good point. I always believed in healthy competition. But also, I guess it also depends with like if you've had like good role models in your life. If all of your role models in your life have like betrayed you and been like fickle, or everybody you've relied on has been bad to you, then of course you're gonna mistrust the world. But if you've met a lot of good people, if you've had strangers give you like random kindness for nothing in exchange, then you're gonna be more hopeful about the world. You're gonna find beauty in different things. Like, it's such two different stark mentality, and I don't know if they can even, they are even compatible.
And exploitative individuals trying to siphon as much money and clout as they can from anyone they can snake out of. This medium that used to inspire so much creative spark in you has begun to develop a negative association, a feeling that looms so heavy it makes you want to give up on this industry. And that is a very, very sad thing.
Yeah.
And if you are a fan or an audience member, it's a bit simpler. The collapse of multiple agencies you might have been a fan of, the exposés and many mistakes of the creators you've loved, the vague posting, the frequent drama that they get themselves embroiled in or started, the side comments, the questionable decisions, all piled on top of each other, it plants a seed of doubt in your head. And that seed eventually grows. You just stop liking people. You just stop trusting VTubers, stop trusting VTuber agencies. That once source
that is literally what I was talking about.
Of boundless joyful energy from your favorite streamer group could get spoiled by one bad Google Talkie. Suddenly, you question if your Oshis are the people you thought they were. You notice how fake a lot of things seem. It is reminiscent of celebrity culture before the internet was a thing. People loved actors. People really only hated certain celebrities for superficial reasons like, you know, Justin Bieber gay or his music bad. But when the internet became a thing, they started yapping, and the more they opened their mouth, they revealed how dumb, malicious, or profoundly unlikable they are. In but half a generation, their carefully crafted PR and identities got broken down online because they cannot shut the fuck up. Such a thing is happening in Vtubing. Even VTubers that used to be uncritiquable now have critics because of the things they do or say, and sometimes it's even because of things they don't do or say. Figures like Bao, Amalie, Ironmouse, Shylily, and even fucking Iago. Iago! While they are still beloved in the mainstream, doubts about their character had been planted already, and these doubts are no longer just living in 4chan boards and circles. They're a bit more widespread now, just waiting for their next drama so they can jump.
Unironically, 4chan is more moderated than Twitter now. That is not even a hot take. which is crazy.
Like an alligator. And whether you agree or disagree with the criticisms around them, it's clear that the tides are shifting against the medium as a whole. And I think this is just a symptom of the greater point, that people are noticing. And when people notice, they do one of two things: step back or double down. Those that aren't unemployed or do actually touch grass prefer to step back. But because these are VTuber fans that are dedicated and parasocial to their favorites, and because these are VTubers that need their platforms to be alive, most industry members opt to actually double down. Thus, the next D happens: division. Every VTuber wants to grow, no matter fucking what. Everyone wants the industry to improve and expand, but everyone sees how to do it differently. Old school traditional VTubers and fans prefer to keep it as it is when they joined, character-driven, dismissive of drama, a space truly and purely for weebs and losers, light-hearted. Usually, these are your Hololive and small agency fans, and VTuber fans who's been around since 2020 or 2021. Anyone that's adjacent to the JP side of the industry, really. But newer fans want to see it change. Bereft of idol culture, no parasocialism, able to show your faces, sanitized. These people came from the Twitch and Western streamer culture, so these two types of fans see certain acts or cultural aspects differently. For a few examples, traditional fans hate the trend hopping and engagement bait and the VTuber versus IRL because it's not something that VTubers of their era would do. It muddies how a VTuber could be counted and what a VTuber.
But that's not really true because 2.5D VTubers in Japan is extremely popular and has always been, even from the 2020s. So that's not even true. That's like a made up thing that these quote-unquote traditional fans have adopted, like Kason, Rusia, all of that. Yeah, I think it's not a huge deal. People think too hard about it. The thing is, there's a human behind the avatar, and as much as you want to separate that from yourself, and trust me, I've tried, it's like impossible because you have a whole other life once the behind your stream. You know, is you can't just like cut yourself out completely. You try to, you know, put on the streamer persona and all of that. You try not to get into personal details, blah blah, for security reasons. You try not to talk about personal stuff because nobody's interested in that. People are here to, you know, for example, for my stream, they're here to come hear my takes on some drama or tell you guys about the latest X situation is crazy slop. But at the end of the day, you can't just, no matter how hard you try, you can't just completely cut yourself. Like your identity, like you have a past, you have a future besides VTubing. That's unfortunately not going away.
Even means, whereas newer fans absolutely enjoy it or don't mind. Newer fans hate a lot of the JP-sourced cultures of VTubing, such as lolly, idol culture, and even the character bits, whereas traditional fans are absolutely okay with these and even love parts of it. Traditional fans wants to keep real-world affairs and politics out of their anime girls and values professionalism and orderliness, whereas newer fans tend to value the lawlessness and wants to have current affairs follow them into their brand a lot of the time. This is
like I don't this push into like politics discourse is happening everywhere though. Like even I think on, like, my friend is in Mexico right now and she's like, you know, it's kind of crazy, like she's on dating apps, and on people's profile on their dating apps they're like, do not match with me unless you're pro X country or pro X other country. So some people are like making this their entire personality. I guess that's why they want to inject that into their content, but I really don't understand the appeal.
VTubing's very specific brand of politics, and you might even notice that it has a very interesting reflection onto actual real-world politics. My perspective is that old fans were taken in by Vtubing's very niche appeal. Vtubing had its set culture, similar to any community. Its target demographic were originally people like me. weebs, nerds, and losers. But when Vtubing got popular, many opportunistic e-girls as well as predatory businessmen saw a golden opportunity. And when the large influx of these people came, they chose to dismiss many of its cultural aspects and turned it into an aesthetic choice, or a brand new buzzword that they can pitch to investors or something. Some of the new people coming in aren't really even weebs. They're
You've
tourists.
seen that on FB dating? You've seen that on Hinge? That's crazy.
That just saw what looks to be the cool new fresh hip thing, or just wanted to have the feeling of identifying with something. I always mourn the death of a culture that were made by nerds and losers, because when said cultures became mainstream, a lot of what makes it soulful gets removed for something more normal. The current development of Vtubing is just one of the mainstream's many victims, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's not like I liked all parts of the traditional culture too. For example, while I don't mind GFE or parasocial relationships and I even think it gets overly demonized, I also think that it's weird some traditional fans hate it when their Oshis talk to the opposite sex like a Holostar or Nijisanji member. That some people engage too deeply with it or have deluded themselves into thinking that these VTubers, these girls, are actually single. The tribalistic parts of idol culture is something I don't like. I don't like how certain bad situations are often downplayed because they don't like the negative air of drama and they perpetuate this forced air of sanitation. And in relation to that, I don't like how hugboxy it feels most of the time. Some of these people actually worship the multi-million-dollar agency.
Yeah, it's almost it's almost impossible to talk about certain topics without getting like heavily criticized by their fan base, because they're like, no, it's gotta stay positive. Please, it's gotta stay positive. And any deviation from this positivity, they're like, no, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to talk about us that way. You're not allowed to criticize the fan base. Every time I used to make a video like Hololive fan sent bomb threat to this person, for example, to this headquarter, everybody in the comment was like, this is not a Hololive fan, misleading title, blah blah blah. This is not true. There's no fans like that. But there is, like, truthfully, factually, he was a Hololive fan. And we were forced to change the title because of that. But I was just like, this is stupid because he actually was a Hololive fan, though. He was just a deranged one. You can be a fan of many things. Like, they have a wide fan base. Of course, not every single person in that fan base is gonna be like a good person or totally there.
And treat these adult women like they're toddlers. Criticism, even constructive, is not welcome. At the same time, something that I agree with the newer fans is self-expression. Being able to talk about problems in the industry is a good thing. Being able to do more with the concept of piloting a virtual character is cool, to a certain extent. For example, I think Vtubing is fine, but even saying that is going to give me fierce pushback from traditional fans, and at the same time, it isn't enough to count me in as welcome in the newer fans' tribe. But why I am talking about this isn't to broadcast my opinion, it's to explain that my situation is only one of many, and it's a consequence of this big divide. Nuances are thrown out of the window to favor agendas and broader, more extreme narratives. You, as a fan or a VTuber, are categorized based off of vibes, based off of the VTubers that you watch, and you are supposed to help the collective push the agenda even if there are things you disagree with on your own tribe. I remember back in the day, there used to be cross-pollination.
The Vtubing thing is stupid, man. Like, if you look at some of the oldest Hololive clips that went viral, they were super lewd. Like, and some of these corpo VTubers also had like PL accounts where they did like adult work. Some of the OG ones, yeah, they used to call Hololive Eurolive. But to me, it just seems like we are okay with gooning. Like, we're okay to gooning to gacha woman. We're okay to gooning to anime woman. Like, that's cool, that's based, and all of that. But the second a real, like, female does it, then it starts being a problem suddenly. And I feel like this is an issue that's been that's gaining more traction the past, like, what, 2 years? I feel like this discussion wasn't really around before that. I also feel like it's made up, like it's a made up non-issue, because if you just don't like it, then just don't interact with it. Like, just look, like, do something else. Go watch somebody else. I don't understand it. Women, I'm scared. I know, women are scary. That is true. I can remember back in 2018-ish, there was some JP VTuber who went kind of viral for an NTR plapping stream she did. Old enough to remember when Neanners was in Touch Fluffy Tail OST.
Nation between cultures. Hollow and Twitch VTuber fans, for example, were like curious and generally welcoming citizens that wanted to meet with each other and see the sides of their nations. It used to be a big deal, and an entire event even, when a Hololive member would collab with a VShojo member or a Nijisanji EN member. For example, do we all remember the Romeo and Juliet memes of Kiara and Pomo? But again, as time passed on, the differences grew too big. Incidents such as the big Nijisanji EN Discord leak, the VShojo Nuxtaku situation, Salengate, the Wizard Game incident, and other politically laced drama created a sense of animosity between each other. And yes, there are still traditional fans that like new VTubers, and new VTuber fans that like traditional VTubers, but we rarely see cross-cultural pollination happen anymore. And I think that's a sad thing. Of course, between the traditional and new fans, they have their own sub-factions, right? Incidents like the Cinderdoki drew circles in the indie sphere, how that fandom doesn't even know if they should like Filian or not. The Holostars Axin and Sameko Sabadrot also tore divide in the traditional group. Both are not as unified as you might think. I could draw a map of these groups of people, as well as their factions, but that would require me to go full autist mode and speculate like a motherfucker. Maybe I'll do that in another video or something. As a whole, these frequent clashes, these attempts to gain popularity, the disillusioned people who see the industry for what it is, culminate in the last D: drama. Aside from political grifting, engagement baiting, copycatting, virtue signaling, aesthetic stealing, and goonerism, there is also drama farming. Now obviously, I'm part of this problem. I've been making videos about Vtubing since late 2021, and I originally didn't start covering drama a lot. I was broadly focused towards commentary and recalling events, but during the big 2024, I pivoted somewhat. And now I stream at least once a week talking about the drama that happens in the industry, and I upload highlights and clips onto my second channel. I have a passion for autistically talking about issues, events, and wider topics about VTubing as a culture and medium. That's what my main channel is for. But me doing drama was a natural step in the pipeline. And the thing is, it's successful. In fact, it is so fucking successful that sometimes even my highlights channel actually beats my main channel in terms of monthly viewership. But the thing is, I'm not the only one that did this, especially in 2024 and 2025. In fact, I would like to think I'm one of the slower ones. Kyo and False ID are gone, and some of the drama-hating parts of the industry celebrated that, but the thing is, they left a massive gap in the market. People that were worse or better were eventually going to replace them, and that gap, that demand, was filled in by creators like Kazahana and Lydia, fucking even Katliente to a certain extent. And that's only on the YouTube side of things. The drama coverage and discussion on the Twitter side is inarguably 100 times worse. On Twitter, it's not just drama and news tubers that talks about.
I mean, I don't think he meant it that way, but just for the record, I think Lydia and Kazahana are like they're okay. They're not doing a bad job. I think there's like bad examples. I don't think he was trying to give these guys as a bad example, by the way, but it sounded like that. But I know him, and he wouldn't think that. Catliente, though, we won't talk about her.
About news and drama, it's fucking everyone. Everyone has something to say about current event. So in VTubing, whenever something bad happens and if you're on the goddamn site, you're going to know or hear about it one way or another. And the sheer number of people
he made a clear distinction of Lydia and Kazan or fine categories. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Drama peddling makes the negative air around the industry thicker. So much so that 1 week without major drama is actually a godsend. VTuber fans can actually breathe for a bit, and I actually get to watch some streams. Blocking people like me isn't really even enough to stop drama from appearing in your timeline at this point.
No.
Again, you will hear about drama one way or another. Your timeline might
it's not, you don't need content creators drama for it to have drama. A single tweet can spark drama. Bro, the Demi thing, think about how it started. It was her saying she didn't want not safe for work fan art. That's how it started. A single tweet. It can be something as innocuous as like a burner account making a tweet, by the way, which is how most of them starts right now. Because before, a burner account wouldn't get traction, but now you can make a burner account, drop a Google Docie on somebody, and then that Google Docie will be shared with like their fan base because of the algorithm.
Even get full of it, and it's only a matter of time and topic that you will eventually participate in it as well. The main point of this particular D, the core of it, is that negativity sells. Agenda posting, publicly throwing shade at people you don't like but did nothing to you, creating Google Docies for the most nothing burger issues, ignoring healthy communication with your peers so you can make a big stink about it, virtue signaling, and vague posting about the bad thing are all meta strats employed by VTubers big and small, even the ones that you know. Whether you want to admit it or not, a lot of VTubers start drama or exactly know what they're doing by saying or doing something inflammatory, whether for attention or for their own unspoken agenda. All of this compounds. Because people are having a difficult time gaining attention, there's going to be drama. Because
I think most of the time they get into drama due to like a stupid decision. Sometimes it's overblown by Twitter. Sometimes, you know, they did a little wrong, but not really a big one yet. But the backlash itself, combined with the people that come up to defend them, and then they realize, oh shit, this could work. And it's crazy because the first time they do it, usually they get defended a lot. And everybody's like, this is just, you know, V-tweeters. They're attacking them for no reason. This is stupid. Then they get a boost in following them. Then they get addicted to the dopamine. So they're like, oh, I got to do it again and again and again. And then they start believing the things that they're saying too. In my head, maybe chat can tell me what you guys think there. To a certain degree, they must be believing what they're saying. Like, nobody can lie like this. I don't know. Or maybe they can. Maybe that's just me. That's just what people call grifting. But you know, like when you're arguing with somebody and you're like not really offended at first, but the more you argue, the more like offended you get and the more into it you get, to the point where you start believing what you're saying. Like at first you might be arguing just to be playing devil's advocate, but then it gets heated and then you like really, it reinforces your position, even though you at first didn't really believe in it. I think there could be a little bit of that at play here as well.
people are disillusioned, there's going to be drama. Because people are divided, there is going to be drama. When the industry is filled and dominated by high school-minded people, this becomes a toxic and deliberate self-sustaining cycle. I think these are the main reasons why Vtubing has become so negative. I'm sure you have something to say that I might have missed, but I think whatever you can think of will roughly fit into one of the 4 Ds.
Yes, sometimes I devil advocate's too hard that I forget I don't actually agree. True, the chat hyping them up surely plays into it, and there's definitely a big case of audience capture for several content creators. Props to those that can stand up to their audiences. It takes a lot of balls.
Again, admittingly, I am part of this cycle, but I guarantee you 99% of the creators and fans in this space are all part of the cycle too. Many of the VTubers you like might have also politically grifted or currently is, might have also done bad engagement bait or sympathy or rage baits up till now, might have virtue signaled and still do, might have grandstanded and still do, might have started or peddled drama and still do. We just need to be a bit honest with ourselves. Everyone has sort of a hand in setting precedents that made the industry a tiny bit worse. Worse in this case is subjective, but the discussion of it still breeds that same air of conflict, of negativity. And I think that's why we can't go back to the way it used to be. We were just so optimistic and captured by the magical nature of VTubing, now we don't have that figurative anesthesia anymore. However, even if that's the case, there is still a way to engage in VTubing that might preserve a little bit of that magic if it's still on your person. And it's to uninstall Twitter. No, seriously, just, uninstall Twitter. 99% of the drama comes from Twitter, okay? Or heck, a less effective yet sort of valid way is to block people. You don't want to hear about drama? Block it. You don't like certain VTubers? Block them and their fans. Yeah. To a certain extent, the happiest remaining VTuber fans are the ones that are ignorant of the bullshit that is going on in Twitter and usually just stick to their own circles.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think like uninstalling Twitter actually helps. Like, yes, if you're sure, if you're a viewer or a viewer or commentator, you can just walk away from all of that. But we've seen how stuff that happens on Twitter is starting to leak out IRL now. It's like they're all like feeding each other into this loop. And if you don't answer them on Twitter, they come into your chat. They go to all your other social media. They leave comments on your YouTube videos. Like I don't have Twitter on my phone. I only see Twitter on my day off, so or like when I'm working on a script or something. And still, I know that it leaks out.
Clip watchers who only watch the occasional VTuber clips or don't give too much of a fuck to delve deep into threads. Casuals who engage with a little bit of everyone. Stream watchers that focus their energy entirely on the VTuber and their group streams and only engage with the peers and community instead of everything else. Unironically, the one effective way that I've noticed the happier parts of the industry do is just to ignore everything else. No engaging with it, just
block them. We block them. Then they go on Twitter to complain about it, and then they rile up other people fan base with like their false narrative that they're creating, and then like your ops like take that to use it against you, etc., etc. Like it's just like you can decide not to engage with it, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the world is gonna stop engaging with it. Is kind of what I'm trying to say here.
ignoring it. Try doing that in 2026. Focusing all your energy into having fun instead of anything else was unironically the source of positivity in 2020. The rest of the world was negative, especially with the pandemic, but VTubers allowed an outlet to be able to have fun by ignoring the world for a bit. In a sense, just do the same thing that we've all done before, albeit more deliberate this time. Despite the flawed nature of VTubing and its people, I still call it my home. There's a reason I keep coming back to it even after my 10th graduation / hiatus. It's a fucked up place, but there's life here. It's still beautiful. There are still sights to behold, people to meet, subcultures and communities to explore, and 2D girls to simp for obviously. So despite the absolute state of VTubing, I'm gonna stick around. And I hope some of the people watching this video still do too.
I think there's really cool stuff happening in the VTubing community still. Yeah, the next video is I made a mistake, but it's about him and his strike. I think there's some cool stuff. There's some positive stuff that is happening. There was FaceCon, that was a huge success. People were very happy about me uploading the highlight for that on my clips channel. We just had like there's some Hololive concerts coming up. For this year, people travel a little bit less for concert because money's tighter, but there's always like cool events and stuff going on. I had a Saikuno allegations 4 days ago, but this happens months ago. World Cup reacts are peak. Yeah, the VTubers reacting to World Cup have been fun. FaceCon was awesome, yeah. The Jorp bit was everything you wanted and more. So cute. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stick around because if we all leave, then there's only going to be negativity. And yeah, I mean, for sure, I do part like he did a part on the drama farming, and obviously I am part of that too. But I think that if I stop doing it, I'm not saying that like to have an ego or something, but I think everybody would be worse off. Like, yeah. There's just so many things that we've debunked on this stream. We've debunked like decade-old narratives that turned out not to be true, but that was repeated across the community, whether it was on companies I liked, on companies I disliked. That didn't matter. If it was debunked, I debunked it. There's so many things we found out because of my incredible Discord community too. They're incredible sleuth as well. We've pieced stories together that nobody else had figured out. Just this year alone, we also made the devs of Expedition 33 Claire Obscure that were suing this indie manga artist, and because of our coverage, they dropped the lawsuit. So we can still do the right stuff while doing bad stuff. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. I mean, look, if I don't talk about it, somebody else will. That was a weird ass lawsuit. Haven't you thought of quitting the drama? No, not really, actually. No, I don't think so. I don't think I will, like that meme. I think, I mean, sometimes I get tired of it, but I haven't thought of quitting because I'm not a quitter in general. No, exactly. Exactly. If one Vtuber quits, it doesn't really matter because another content creator will take their space. It's a closed ecosystem, and the ecosystem doesn't really care about you in particular. It cares about how you can contribute to it. So if you leave that ecosystem, the ecosystem will close around you and they'll just produce somebody else, for better or for worse. Honestly, I don't see Rima shifting to a retro gaming channel. My gaming skills, I ain't sure. I think, but I'd like to cover more positive stuff from time to time. I like to shed a light maybe more on some cool stuff happening in the community. That is something that I have to like probably actively push for because the algorithm favor everything negative. Yeah, I do have a Dakimakura going on. That's non-drama, of course. We've had some gaming streams. We have some non-drama streams, of course. Rima, the other streamers are literally reading chat while driving. The bar cannot be lower. You are peaked. Thank you. Thank you. And thankfully, it's because of these streamers reading chat while driving that I get to look good in comparison to them. So thank you, the extra Emilys of this world. Everybody's got their place in the world, you know, the role to play. Hey, you, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button. And I'll see you in the next video.